yesterday I made what they call it in America, they call it French toast. Here they call it pain perdu, which is lost bread. And so it's really good with older bread. And you put, you whip up some eggs with a little bit of like milk. I use yogurt, plain yogurt, and salt and pepper. Whip that up, and then you dip the bread or the thing in it. So I did it with this brioche stuff, and it was like fucking awesome.
You know how that is called in Germany?
It was so good. What?
In Germany, it's called arme Ritter, poor knights. But it's delicious.
It's awesome. And with this brioche stuff that had like, one of them had like these little praline like nuts in it and everything. And so it's just like, oh my God, it was so good. And there was just like, some of it was broken apart, because it had dried out. So it was like little bits of it. So then I just poured had them in the pan, and then poured the egg thing, just drizzled it over. So it it soaked up the egg. But then it was like omelet of,
I will keep that in, and I will put it in the show notes as Sharon's next level French pastry leftover recipe.
I think today what I might be experiencing is the come down of the gluten and sugar,
definitely.
which I just really don't eat much of. Yeah. And so today I'm just dead. I'm dead. I feel like I could stay in bed all day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Took a shower. Still didn't wake up. We'll see, folks. So
all sad.
Slide off my chair in a coma. You know why?
Welcome to season 2 of Free Range Thinking.
Oh, yes.
And join us now, a cozy recording food truck full of French pastry and dark chocolate and coffee, and dive into some interesting topics and rabbit holes around the topic of neurodiversity with us. I'm Alex Karl, and I just talk further for Sharon because she's doing on a chocolate.
Yes. That's good.
We deliver a delicious buffet of neurodivergent topics, discussions, questions, and explorations around the subject of living as a neurodivergent human. We love exploring and celebrating how people like us can not only thrive in today's world, but prosper. Because the world desperately needs neurodivergent humans to bring real transformation and evolution to mankind. We are the keys through the shitstorm of a one-size-fits-all world. And that is...
That is no joke, my friends.
That is no joke. Righty right. And Sharon is back from the trip to the NFT trip to Paris. How was it?
It was very interesting. I hesitate to do a full-on review here because full-on review / critique. There was definitely, when I go to anything like this, any salons, conventions, messe, all the same thing, different words, different. And this was the first thing that I've been to like this since the pandemic. So it is a little bit of a shock to the system because it's just so many people, and it's a lot. And for a neurodivergent, with different sensitivity issues, but I was ready for it, so it's fine. I know what I was getting into. I've been to enough of them. I know, so I have a very high level of self-care. Like I said, the apartment that we reserved an apartment very close, so that if we needed to escape and take a nap and recharge, that we could do that. Didn't have to do that, but it was very, very tiring. And I haven't been in a, it's both that, but also because of the pandemic, there's kind of this paranoia of being in that tight of a crowd. So I probably wasn't doing a lot of belly breathing, which of course also tires you out, and has a knock-on effect. But I kept catching myself breathing really high up in my lungs because I feel like I just subconsciously don't want to suck in all the tainted oxygen. And if it's kind of like if somebody near you like coughs or sneezes or something, and within a crowd that tight, you're just like, oh my god, and that thing is like, do I wear a mask to go to this thing, or do I, like nobody's wearing a mask, and but anyways, that's just on my side. From the event, there was a number of things that definitely could have been done better. There was a quote unquote food court, which was this tiny place, not enough tables, not a place to sit, and you didn't appear to be anybody bussing the table. So it's like the mound of garbage and leftover garbage kept, getting bigger. It was like, for something supposedly this sophisticated, I was like, wow, that wasn't, taken into account. And they only had a tiny place like where you could get coffee, and a tiny place where you could get water and drinks, and then a tiny place. We ate before, so we didn't have to worry about this. A tiny place to get food, like burgers. I think they just had like burgers or something. But the lines for each of those were just so damn long that you're like, no, I'm not standing in that. And the people that had actual booths there, we spoke with them, and some of them hadn't eaten at all, and hadn't even had a cup of coffee because they couldn't. And I was just like, wow, that is really uncool, in a way, to no foresight about it. I don't know that they weren't expecting the crowd like that. I'm not quite sure what the deal was, but the worst part of it was, I mean, not necessarily worse for us, but I keep putting myself, having had stands in events like that, I was imagining myself very much having a stand there and be like, oh, that would have been a nightmare.
Having a
because
what?
A stand, a booth.
Also a booth, yeah.
Having a yeah. So I always, I can't help it. I always look at it from multiple angles when I go to things like that. And but the thing that really struck us was that there was no Wi-Fi. They had a Wi-Fi password, but you couldn't get into it. You just couldn't.
Yeah.
And then you couldn't even use your phones. You couldn't use your own phone service. And so I
because the provider
like,
cell is just totally crowded because everybody tries to use their mobile, and then the mobile provider can provide the service to all of those people. Yeah.
Right. And so, but I mean, they said they have a Wi-Fi. Here's the password. Right when you come in, here's the password for the Wi-Fi. Inaccessible, completely inaccessible for 2 days. And I thought, oh, this is a tech event. Right?
That's what I thought.
On NFTs. And NFTs and Bitcoin and all this stuff runs off the internet. So to run an event and have zero access, and can you imagine, because I would have, if I had done something there, I would have had to have access because I would have been hooked in globally and done something really cool. I'm not going to go into it too much because I am planning on doing something. But if I had a booth there and had needed to be connected, I would have been murderous.
Oh yes.
I would have. And and it wasn't that much. I guess we would say we were kind of underwhelmed with it. It was kind of same, and it was billed as being very creative, very artistic, creative, and community building and whatever. And there was just really none of that. I mean, sure, there was artworks there, but it was like galleries that were curating for artwork, and then there was so again, same model where the galleries are making their money on the backs of the artists.
Sounds really 1.0-ish.
And so it was nothing different in terms of it. Very a couple things that were a little bit interesting, but nothing that really knocks your socks off, which on one hand it's like, I was really expecting to see something amazing, and on the other hand it's exciting to me because it's like, if that's what's out there, that's a low bar for me. I could totally create something that will knock somebody's socks off. If myself and a few collaborators had done something, we would have caught a lot of attention.
But
and
that
very
is
low tech on one side. It's about the connection with the people.
But that's really encouraging.
Yes. That to me is like catnip. It's very exciting to see, because if everything was perfect and amazing and whatever, it was like, wow, I would have to really work hard to put something in there. Of course, I would have gotten ideas and been inspired, and it would have been great on that aspect. But I was inspired in this way, in that, like, oh, look at the gaps, look at the massive gaps.
Yeah.
And for example, what came out of it was that for something like that, you know, and I know next year it's like not to even think about. Plus, the booth costs were like screamingly expensive. And if I had paid that much and then not have had access, internet access, I would have killed somebody. But so for me, as soon as I know when it's going to be, I'm going to gather around the super creative and innovative people that I'm in, you know, have contact with, and say, okay, let's do an outside event, and just blow their socks off and do something really cool, because all the people are in town and they're hungry for it. And if everything's same, it's not much effort at all to do something really, really cool and innovative. Yeah. So I'm not going to say what I thought. I'll tell you later. Recording.
The conference situation totally reminds me of Republica. So the Republica started as a blogger meetup in 2006 or 2007. And when I was there for the last time in 2019 or 2020, no, 2020 was already Corona, so 2019, it was like 8,000 people or so. And always, every year, the same problem. I mean, most of the time, the last years, I didn't use the Wi-Fi. I turned down my expectations and said, okay, you just have to expect that either the Wi-Fi nor your cell phone is going to work around the conference. So just prepare for that. And the food situation, exactly the same. The last years, they had a massive courtyard, like a big place in the middle, where they could have had much more food offerings, but they just didn't. So my best tip for this is I always bring a tin can or stainless steel can, and I just packed a liter of water, and the tin can I filled up with bacon and egg at the breakfast in the hotel, and I always landed a spoon from the hotel, so that I had something to eat, because I mean, I wasn't big into for a lot of people that is kind of the fun to stand in the line and to connect with others. It's for the extroverted.
I was gonna say, these are extroverted people you're talking about.
It's like, hey, we all meet there and we stand in line and we talk and we have fun, and I'm like, nah, not for me.
Well, I've got a kind of a funny side story about that. I sent you pictures of the line to get in. That was another thing. The line was just outrageously long to get in, and we were in there for like about almost an hour
in the line.
And luckily, it wasn't that. And so we were outside snaking through this park, and you know, luckily, it wasn't that cold. It was really chilly, and when you were in the shade, it was fairly cold. But if it was
dry.
really, really cold, and dry. So if it was cold and rainy, I would have bagged on it. I wouldn't have been able to go in. I wouldn't have been able to stand in that. And so, but the whole time we were there, and Faustine, my friend Faustine and AJ were there. They were saying, well, hopefully there's cool people in front of you and behind you so you can have a conversation while you're in line. And Stasky and I were like, you know us, right? We're not going to talk to anybody. Right? Like, who you're talking to, right? Well, it turns out the after event brunch that we did host on Sunday this woman walked in the door, and her name is Kat, and she's originally from Poland, but she lives in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, and as soon as she walked in, I was just like, oh my God, you were literally the person in front of us.
No way.
Yes, 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 yeah, yeah. So it's kind of like, you know, maybe sometimes try and come out of your shell and talk to people, but we were just, you can't force something like that. Sometimes I do, but in other times, like standing in line,
Yeah.
yeah, I just don't, because it's time to hang out in my own head and reflect on stuff or work on, not work, but I just do thinking time. I use it as thinking time.
Yeah.
So, why start a conversation with some stranger? And,
Yeah.
but it was funny, but she's very introverted as well, and she's neurodivergent.
I just wanted to ask if she might be introverted as well, because when you are in line and when you are in line and in front of you are introverted people and behind you are introverted people, then you have no chance at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have. If there's somebody in there who is like on the edge, like understands introverted people, but is a little bit comfortable in starting a conversation. That is quite nice, because a total extrovert person would annoy the hell out of me, like right away, and I would like, piss off, don't get on my nerves. Oh, that is really tricky.
And I was correct in my guess. I would say assumption, but it's not so much an assumption, because assumption kind of sounds like a judgment. But my guesstimate that the women, the people that I'd caught, when I put out the notice for the brunch, and for other things, it's a very, very, very high level of neurodivergence. And so that became like very clear in the at the brunch. And so that was kind of cool.
Without really mentioning neurodiversity up front.
No, but it's like engineers.
Yeah.
I mean, when you go into a room or something or an event with a bunch of engineers, you just know there's a very high percentage of neurodivergence.
Yeah.
And so the same thing with tech, and like this one woman, she was a scientist. She's about my age, I think. I think she's younger. And she was really cool. Well, all of them were really cool, but it was just like, we had people from like different areas of interest, which I just loved. They weren't all coders, developers, but they all had, their kind of passion and interest and specialty. And so I was really happy that we had a really cool mix of people that were, what they were doing and like really passionate and obsessed about it. That was great. But the people were saying that, and everybody, when we were asking everybody, hey, how did you find the event? And everybody kept saying the same thing. Their frustration with the event. And I was just like, okay. So I was listening. I'm listening when all that's going on. I'm like, okay, I could do it different. And, so I was thinking, so what would be cool? So I asked a lot of questions around that. And I'm like, all right, I could do that. And so we all, wanted to keep contacts. We got on a Telegram group from the brunch group, which is for me, a total success. I'm not out for looking for, a ton of surface connections. I want a handful of deep connections. And so I got exactly what I wanted out of it. Exactly. So I'm very, very pleased with it. And the quality of people that we made deep connections with. I'm thrilled. Absolutely thrilled. And it, gives me an idea of what I can do for a community of people like us. And there's plenty of us out there. And so some of people function really well in that kind of dude bro environment,
Mm.
but most of the people, they want something else.
Mm.
So it's like, okay, this is cool. I can totally serve up a place and an ambiance where you can really get down and do some work and make some connections and collaborate on some cool projects. Yeah, and help each other, with different things. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was really really happy with it. It's always the good with the bad, or this, I want to say, the silver lining in something. What I mentioned earlier. If it's perfect, it's not that I have to work harder to come up with something amazing.
Mm.
But this one, it's like the bar is so low, it doesn't really take much. Now, granted, the place, the venue where it was, and the location, right in the center, right next to the Eiffel Tower, but it's like the amount of money that they had to pay, which is what, the outrageous fee on the booths, tiny booth space.
Mm.
And then to sell the tickets for it, because we got a ticket with the Her Dao community, women's community, and that, but that they were selling tickets for like 400 and something euro. But yeah, so if I had to pay 400 something to go to this event,
Whew.
I would have felt like it was a waste.
Yes.
But if, because we had the pass for it, it was totally worth it. The time spent to go to Paris, and the cost of being in Paris, because of course it's, you're paying for the travel and the place to stay, and then the food, and yada yada. And so that to me was totally worth it, because it's an investment in doing cool things and projects and connecting to people. So I was very happy with that. And we had, on the first day, we went to these women organized a tea party. So they had cakes and tea and coffee and stuff in this really cool space. And this woman, Camille, and her mother have this space that they have the lease on it for like 11 years. And they do like pop-up things, gallery type things or little events. And so I spoke with them, and that was interesting. It's not really close to the venue. It's farther off, but the space is really cool. And I thought, okay, this would be interesting. What would I do in here? And so I'm kind of chewing on that, because the ceilings are very high and it's echoey. And there was like 30 people in there. And it's like when you're talking, you just literally couldn't hear what they were saying. So the acoustics are horrible, but the place is adorable. So it's like, okay, what could we do? Would that entail hanging fabric, in there? But you don't want to cut the visual of the top of it, because it was amazing. The architecture in there is amazing. So so I'm thinking about that, like, okay, what would I do in there? But I definitely want to do something in there, and with them, because they are innovative and really cool. And so
do you know if there
there's
are
a lot of connections like that.
What I would find interesting in a space like that? Do you know this silent disco, or the silent keynotes? Where everybody gets headphones, and in the silent disco you have the music on your headphones, or in silent keynotes everybody wears a headset. Something like that in a loud environment, so that you can choose and say, okay, no, we want to talk to each other in without any supplement, or without any help. Or you can say, okay, we use technology, and we use our headphones with noise cancelling, and meet in some kind of Zoom room or whatever, but we stand physically together, but we can listen to each other with perfect sound. That would be interesting. That's possible.
So it is interesting in terms of, you know, neurodivergence, because the same people, they were at the brunch and they were like, yeah, it was, you know, it's hard to hear in that situation. And so how do you have deep conversations and deep connections? And when you first, you know, and it was the same thing with the brunch. It's like, you know, everybody's in the beginning introducing themselves and, you know, what they're interested in and what they're working on, what they're developing. And so it's like the first half hour, or even the first hour, you have this, you know, pitch phenomena where everybody kind of has their persona of who they present this thing, you know, what they're doing, the thing, you know, so they present their pitch persona. And but then in fairly quickly that kind of dissolved, and then you can have real conversations. But you have to go through that first part. And it's important to have all the stages. And so it's like, what can we create? So I'm thinking a lot about this. It's you know, so all of this stuff has to percolate and ferment, if you will. And I know I'll come up with a solution and different kinds of solutions, different alternatives. But like, what would that look like that will facilitate that process? You know, going through those phases in such a way that we get to the real connection and the real conversations fairly quickly. And yeah, so that's very interesting to me, and totally doable. And but in, you know, within the spaces and within, and again, I like what you said, you know, it's like using technology to make that happen as smoothly as possible. And the stuff we have at our fingertips is, you know, I mean, you know, we have everything. We have everything right now that can allow that to happen and that we can play with. And so I will be talking to my real job starts now. And this is the part that I'm actually really good at, is contacting each of the people that I had really good conversations with and go, okay, here's what I want to do. What do you think of this? And how do you see this? And how about we do an event here? Are you interested in that? Or are you interested in just finding out what they're interested in that will help their project move forward, but that will also help the community of, you know, the people we just met, and not just that core group, but other people, you know, what that looks like. So this is, and I do like it. I do like that, which, you know, it's kind of the chicken or the egg thing. Am I good at it, therefore I like it? Or do I like it, therefore I'm good at it?
Does it really matter?
Like, well, it does in terms of describing what it is that I do, because people ask me a lot, how the hell do you do that? I'm like, I don't know, you know.
You are an ambience alchemist.
I just do. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right. Yeah. But that the Ambience Alchemist is not just at the place, it's the you know, the front end of it, or the, you know, the preloading of it, and the work that it does to find out about people and curate the right people in the right places. But it all starts with the question of like, what do you like and what's fun for you? It all starts with that. But a lot of times,
and what are you willing to be surprised with?
What am I willing to be surprised? Oh my God, that's a great question. I like that. That is, well, willing to be surprised with everything. It's the first easy answer, quick answer. I always like being surprised by stuff that. But again, it's also because I'm open to things, and I don't really bring a lot of expectation into it.
Mm-hmm.
It does take a lot to surprise me, just by the nature of you know, how I approach things. But I'm always delighted when I am surprised. That's like the greatest. That's a great question. What am I? But I'm open. It's always open.
What did surprise you at the event? Did something surprise you?
Yeah, because of how it was put across. And Bill, you're talking about the NFT event. The fact of how kind of professional it was put across, and the fact that it wasn't that, that was a bit surprising. Thinking, wow, you have all these opportunities, you have all these connections, and yet the massive gaps of allowing for real connection. And for example, they were talking about Web3, it's like, but it's just like Web2 with, the languaging about Web3. It's not anything. And for example, they have a couple people had a couple booths, and people doing stuff. They had like the VR headsets, and I don't know. I assume, because I have a headset, a VR headset, I assume that kind of everybody's had one of those on their face, and so they have experienced that, especially in this crowd. And it turns out that people are like, "Oh my God, that was amazing!" And I was like, "But that's 15-year-old technology."
Yes.
And it's like, and it's like I going to the maker fairs and having the first generation of these things where you put them on your head, and then there's like wires hanging off it. It wasn't slick.
And 3 people around you holding the monitors.
Exactly. And so, I've seen that from the beginning, but again, it's the age thing as well. Is what's cool about being the age that I am, is that I've seen it evolve. And so there's value in that. In that it's like, wow, you have all these younger people that put it on their face, in 20s and 30s, and they're just like, wow, this is amazing. Oh God, the things we could do with it. And I'm like, but that's, there's really nothing different. And I know for a fact that the technology of the VR headsets is still basically the same. Yeah. There's really nothing new about that. So it's like, how do you use that in a new way?
The thing is, the technology evolved like in 10 or 15 years. The technology got better and better, but there's not really
not much, Alex.
The ideas are missing what you can do with it.
This is what needs to evolve, because the technology is not moving forward with the headsets as fast as the things around it. Yeah. And so the technology of the headsets are still the same. So it's like, okay, knowing that, what can we do with it that is, because I kind of just set it aside in stuff that but now I think I might pick it up again and go, all right, what is possible, especially the women that I met. I'm like going, okay, this is interesting. This one woman in particular, who has the hold on a second, let me pull it up here to get the name correct. Moon Page. Now, I had told you recently, and I thought it was the same one. It's not. She's got a different one about the writing and it's immediately minted into an NFT.
The what
so
page?
This woman, it's called Moon Page.
Moon Page.
And so it's for writers. Mm-hmm. It's for writers. And so it's like anything that you put on, anything that you're writing and that you upload to their thing. Mm-hmm. I'm explaining it very badly because I have to look into it again. but it's minted. It's your thing is an NFT, therefore you're covered and protected. It's yours, and I just love it. I really like it, what she's built, and she's the founder, and she's created it, and she's got a small team.
Oh, that is something I always was interested, or I always was looking for. It's like the literary NFT launchpad, the literature lab for people to turning text into NFT. That's interesting.
Yes. And so she came to brunch. I met her at the tea party thing, and so so Julie, if you're listening to this, I'm gonna totally out you. And I love that. I have to tell the story because I just love it. But it also shows, like how these things manifest. But she went to she and a friend went to this after event that was put on by the NFT Paris thing. But she said that it was like so crazy because you had to wait in this long ass line to get a ticket, to then wait in another line to get in. And they were just like, she and her friend, he was like, the both of them were like, well, screw this, let's go do something else. So they ended up in a gay bar for bears, the hairy men. And she said they had the best time all night. So she showed up to brunch. She was kind of hungover. Yeah. So Julie, I'm sorry, I'm outing you, but it was like, I loved the story, and that's so Paris, and it's so, the flexibility in that, and the just, wow, let's do something different. And I just love it. And I love what she built. I love, the thing. So she and I want to interview her. I kind of want to have her on the podcast, and she wants to interview me. So she's one of the people that I want to contact, but I have a lot of ideas, and it's just like, oh, Julie, just holy shit. But there's a thing about storytelling that I want to do. Again, I'm not going to disclose it here, but I'm just like bombarded with ideas about what she's doing. And so these people are super inspiring and brilliant in what they're doing. And
I would like to do
I just loved it. I loved it. Yeah. I just loved it. I loved the inspiration of hanging out. The thing I've told you that the saying that one of my favorite sayings, that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
You're in the wrong room.
And I loved the thing of going to the tea party and then doing our brunch. And I like the curating and the facilitating of something like that, and creating the ambiance where all these brilliant people can come together. And yeah, I just love that. And it excites me and inspires me, and I get a ton of ideas listening to everybody talk about their projects and their passions and their struggles, like, what are you struggling with? And I'm like, ooh, I got an idea, I can, I can help, move that forward, and I can, help create something that, or a connective experience that brings people together to move that forward. And that to me is very exciting. Yeah.
I was just totally excited because maybe this moon page thing could be. I'm thinking about or looking for the possibility to write like a serial novel, like like in weekly chapters or so, as some kind of NFT. Maybe this is the perfect platform, but I have to look into it.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask another question regarding the whole Web3 thing. What would you say? What might be the Facebook for the Web3?
Okay, first off, anything resembling Facebook, No,
no,
thanks.
no, 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 not resembling, but the push through use case, like Facebook was the app or the product, the one product that brought social media to the masses.
Right. And you just put your finger on it, because for me, for the masses is the wrong way to go about it. It's like anything that I'm doing, it's not for the masses. It's for a very particular group of people. And I think it's important to have, to have that, because as soon as you start to get, for the masses, you start to homogenize. And that's the last thing that I want to do, is homogenize something. And it's like what I'm thinking of, and what obviously when I'm talking to people and I notice that really touches them, is that they have an interest with what's useful for a particular set of people. And so to be a resource and to position ourselves to be a resource for the people that are attracted to what their needs are, and at that particular phase in their life. Then at another phase in their life, they might hook into something else, but you get a lot of tips and referrals from a particular group. So it's kind of like a starting point, is what it feels like almost. And the best thing that can happen is that somebody outgrows your group. And I think that's a compliment, that it's like, okay, we're here for you at this point in your journey, and then you'll probably outgrow us. You're perfectly welcome to stay, and I do know that what I'm thinking out of and providing does feel good in such a way that it's like it energizes and kind of nurtures, for lack of a better word, what people need. It feels good to be around people that recognize what you're doing, and so you kind of get your batteries recharged to just go back out in the onslaught of because that's what they were saying. It's very, very difficult to maintain the energy to just keep staying in the game. And there's no support system like that. So to have a group of people where you can drop back and go, what a shitty experience. You're like, God, I'm really struggling with this. And then have kind of this, a support team that kind of brushes you off, dusts you off, picks you up, and re-energizes you, and you can jump back into the game of whatever it is you're doing. Is kind of like, it's almost like a community of coaches, because I don't want to be everybody's coach. That's not what I'm after, even though I'm a coach, and a precision coach. But I'm pretty good at going, hey, all right, I'm a coach. I can help you with this part, but you know what? This person over here, ooh, you should talk to them. And so I'm a curator of people's super skills and energy and inspiration. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
But I do notice that. I notice where people are, who should plug into which battery, if you lack of a better term. But it's the, again, it's putting a language around this stuff that I don't see anybody doing. It's I'm innovating with the languaging and describing this stuff. that I don't see exists. A resource. It's basically a resource, you know, and I don't mean like human resources. I don't mean it like that, but and a lot of times when you think of community, while yes, it's a community, but a lot of times community connotates it's this closed community. Whereas I like the idea of people coming and going. And I like the idea of building something where there's an influx and yeah, the newness,
it's like
newness, but
it's like this open space concept of bumblebees and butterflies.
Yeah.
Where you can fly like a butterfly from one session or from one talk to the other without feeling bad or without feeling guilty for not staying there when it doesn't when you just realize, okay, that's not for me here. So you can just use the law of 2 feet and just go to the next one without anybody feels
guilty or shame or something, or you feel an obligation. You don't feel an obligation. And it's like a thing of like, you know, hey, who's in here who I can connect with? And then it's like sometimes it's good for, you know, 1 time, 2 times. Sometimes people hook up and they end up talking on a weekly basis for a couple months, maybe 6 months, maybe longer. And it's you can build your own, helping people build their own support systems for what they want to do. And I don't see a lot of people talking about how to do that. And I come up with these ideas because this is what I do. I build my own support system, and it's in phases, because not everybody, you know, you don't need everybody all the time. Sometimes at different phases you need this particular support, and then other times you need this particular support.
Perfect example. Sorry to interrupt, but I just remembered the perfect.
No.
I think one of the perfect examples from that I had in my life. I mentioned the Republica. It's this free, with all the side events longer, but the main event is 3 days in Berlin. Thousands of people, hundreds of sessions, talks, workshops, everything you can imagine. And 2017 or 18, no, it was in our paleo phase. It must have been 14, 15, 16 in the time range, when we were full paleo diet here. I always used the app for the conference to put all the talks, workshops, events I wanted to participate in my calendar. And I always put minimum per time slot. I put minimum 2, most of the time 3 or 4 per time slot, because sometimes it's so full that you can't get in there. Sometimes it's you realize, okay, it's just uninteresting and I want to go somewhere else. You can walk really far from one hall to the other. And on the 3rd day, there was a couple who was offering a workshop of maybe trigger warning for everybody vegan listening, but it was a workshop of butchering half a pig. So they were in Austria on a farm where you can learn how to process a whole pig after butchering it. So the farmer and his wife, they went up from Austria to Berlin. They put this half of a pig in a workshop room, and we were like 20 or 30 people who got an introduction in how to process now the meat. And
that's super useful.
that was
super useful.
It was so serendipitous for me, because it was like poof, the perfect content, and I wanted to stay for an hour, and then I had like 15 other, and then I had to catch my train back home, and I was so late to get my train because I stayed in this one workshop for 7 hours. And I had to run to the hotel because I wanted to don't miss anything. And it was so interesting, so powerful. The whole connection between all the people that were there, because we in the first half an hour, all of us felt really weird, and there was an intro, and then it was clear, okay, now they carry the half pig in there, and some people were really nervous if they can stand that, and if that might overwhelm them, and it was really personal experience already, like half an hour in. Some people had to leave, and then we were such a it was, after an hour after we started working, it was such an intense experience in this group that felt like total freaks on a digital transformation web whatever conference with thousands of people, a little island butchering a pig. It's still powerful for me to think back to that event.
Right. But this is the kind of thing, again, I always have in my head, there's so much information and data and yada yada to absorb. So the last thing in the world I'm going to do is set up something where we have to absorb more. Because we're already saturated. So the best thing that I can do is do something that touches how people feel, and that it's like when they walk away from it, that's what they remember. And that thing that you're describing, it's like, oh, wow, it totally resonates with how it makes you feel,
yes.
Which is weird. It's all the levels of how you feel about it. And
it's special. It was totally special.
And the thing that really stands out, and the fact that it apparently had nothing to do with technology, when in fact it does, because it's the low grade, low tech stuff behind the scenes that allows the tech to flourish.
Yeah.
And so this is what I find like vital. It's for example, when I do the retreats, when I did them before, and I did them for women's leadership, whatever, in a number of different things, categories within that, under that heading, women's leadership, yada yada. But it's all the same stuff. And it's like we start off doing something, but it always ends up being something that it's focused around being, not doing, because this is what people desperately need. And that was, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. It always ends up being the same thing. The last summer was the first time I ever stripped it back and used just the terms of we're just hanging out and doing nothing. It wasn't like we're being. I didn't even use that. I just no, there's no itinerary. And if somebody needs an itinerary, this probably isn't the thing for you. Now, for this group, I will put back the languaging similar to the women's leadership thing without saying women's leadership, but it will be because I don't think the women in the tech areas, in the tech sector, are going to be comfortable with the languaging I had on it last time. But it's the same thing. And it's allowing people to be in a space where they slow down enough and seriously, sometimes for the first time, tap into their super skills and give themselves permission, because that's a big one. That's the one that really stood out. giving yourself permission to be odd and different and do it your way. And what does that look like? But you have to sit with yourself long enough and or a group of people and have discussions before that comes out. And so it's no different. And I saw it was very, very clear. It's the same exact thing that's needed. It was needed back then. It was needed last summer, and it's needed in all sectors, all sectors. And so it's just a matter of putting the languaging around it to get them there, to then allow them their best selves, core selves to emerge, that then facilitates any project that they touch, any project that they want to do, and it enhances. But it is literally tapping into the true self and letting oneself just be who they really are. But it's difficult to put that languaging up front and attract them for the retreats. So, because I asked that at the end of the brunch, I'm like, so if I did this, what would be interesting? And so I recognized immediately it's the same thing with the women's leadership group. But the same thing, the pressure to be perfect, the pressure to be, the perfectionism thing, the doing, and making sure you get it right, and we have to do it in the old model, so it's like helping people let go of doing it in the old model. But that requires hanging out and just being yourself and connecting with the true, what you truly want and what is fun, and trusting in it enough to stand outside of the extrinsic motivators, so make the switch, help them make the switch to connect with the intrinsic motivation. Because it's there, because they're driven. It's phenomenal how driven and brilliant these people are. But it's like that thing I was telling you about again, what my mom said, you don't need to put on the gas, just take your foot off the brake. And so this is totally what these retreats are about. And so it is exciting to me that it's still the same. That is very exciting. And that it's like, okay, I could do this. I could do this for these people. And yeah. And so that the how to put it in the languaging that somebody's like, yes, that's what I need, and make the investment and take the time to do it. So that's where my hard work, I want to say my hard work, that's where because it is fun. It's not hard as an, it's, but my work is, it can be intense depending on, because I am a little bit late putting out notice, but I really wanted to wait until going to this thing to see if I wanted to do one. And I absolutely do. Absolutely do, because again, it's also the same thing where, I recognized how creative everybody is in the tech sector, but they don't see themselves as being creative or artistic, whereas they absolutely are. What they're creating and what they're building and the visions that they have, it's like, oh hell yeah. And so just come out, just come hang out with me, and I'll get you there. Is that what they're called?
Nope.
Okay. But yeah, and so I know that I can do that and facilitate what these women are doing, what these people are doing. It's not just women, it's men as well, but having a space for women, because most of the stuff is built for men, and it's also a little bit harder to help men let go of the paradigm and structure of the tech industrial machine, if you will.
That would be a project in itself on its own.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, it's tiring. Whereas the women already understand innately kind of about community and designing for all. Whereas it's like you have to go through a kind of a curve with most male designers. So it's like, all right, I could, refer people to somebody who's doing that work. But the fun part for me is working with people who are already closer to the journey. So that's where it's interest. And it's funny because I never really set out to be somebody who would be doing things, for women and for women's groups. I always liked the mix. And I did meet some very, very artistic, interesting men. Like, okay, you can come, but it's not going to be a blanket. Yes, everybody come. It's they're very, the men that are ready for it and that are already there and understand, these things, and they're, and are designing and creating for a community, and they think like a futurist in that respect, a connective futurist, if you will. I don't know if that's
that is a great title. I just have to write down the title of this episode. Think like a connective futurist.
So that's kind of my whole thing. And again, to wrap back around I do notice that, those of us, the people who are neurodivergent, we kind of have, we've talked about it before, but our muscles are fairly well developed in doing things in a different way.
Yeah.
Therefore, the jump to having the confidence, the intrinsic motivation thing to do these things, it's an easier jump because we're already, we already have, the muscles of being on the outside are more developed. Therefore, it's the concepts aren't foreign, and which again, that's the kind of sector that I like playing in. Instead of having to educate of why you need to do it, why you need to think like that. If somebody else can do that, that's their thing. That can be a thing. But for me, it's I like the people who are already have a certain awareness about it, even if they don't know that they have the awareness. You know what I mean? They experience it. It's just once you start talking about it, they're like, oh shit, I recognize that. Yes. And then that's where it's, the people in that kind of sector are the ones that are fun to play with and create stuff. Yeah. And so it totally ties into the our thing with the podcast is the free range thinking and the neurodivergence, and because what does it look like for everybody? Because if we build for that, then it is actually ends up being for everybody. And because the average homogenous way things are being built, it's exclusionary, just by accident.
Yeah.
Because they're not thinking of the accessibility and the inclusiveness and equity.
That's
because the people that I'm talking to, they're from all over, the different races, different sectors, and so it's already a built-in part of the conversation, just right out of the gate. And they're.
I just have to get the picture from the wall.
Yeah.
The difference between equality and equity, where the three persons in different heights are standing on boxes, and the one is that large that the person doesn't need a box. The other one can't see, it's a child, and it can't see can't get over the fence to see anything. So the equity is there when the smaller person gets 2 boxes and the person that doesn't need any boxes to watch the game over the fence gives away the box.
And the other way of thinking that is, okay, they're standing outside the fence, because this is what I noticed about that drawing. There's something that kind of is like,
why is there a fence in the first place?
Number one, why is there a fence? Why isn't it automatically built in? Is it equity? Or no, what you're looking at is MacGyvering. That photo is MacGyvering, or that drawing is MacGyvering. It's not actually built in. It doesn't stand for that's what equity is. The equity, a real picture of the equity would be that it was
there's no fence.
Things are built in. Yeah, there's no fence. And you can still participate and be in there. Yeah. The invitation to everybody. But being the and again, talking with these people, because a lot of them are, they definitely have a futurist outlook, which makes it very interesting to have conversations, because they don't perceive me as being like out there and kind of crazy, which is fun. And so it's like I can speak very openly and freely as myself, my full self, and say, it's like, what does that look like in the future to build something that is going to take into account the amount of I want to say immigration and relocation that is coming, with climate change. So this will be a normal thing of people changing and moving. And so what are the infrastructures, and how are we going to use tech to make that an easier thing? And so what does that look like? And so these people are thinking of stuff like this. And it's, I find that phenomenal and exciting area to play in, and have discussions and meet with people and push the boundaries. So I want to say I'm a little bit obsessed with with the group, and I might get lost in playing in the tech sector for a while, because I've been in the facilitation and the this area, which is an amazing place and a lot of innovation going on, but I feel like I'm not necessarily done, but I can push myself farther and into kind of the futurist areas with the tech sector people, and I'm just so yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. Yeah.
Can't wait to hear about the next iteration of that.
Next iteration. Yeah. So that's,
and of course to
it.
have some of the people as guests here and talk to them as well.
Yes.
That would be awesome.
Because I definitely want to Paige, the woman who's the scientist. So I'm going to talk to her about coming on here, but I need to talk to her a little bit more. Go, okay, what would be an interesting, I mean, of course, not the subject we talk about because of how we talk here, but like what we would kind of chew on, some of these. And another woman who was I had definitely want to talk to her, because she's definitely in the kind of the finance monetization area of it. I'm just like, oh, I I could have talked to her just alone. Each one of them I could have talked to alone for which is what I want to do. So I'll be doing that during March, and because I want to know more. I want to hear their stories, and I want to I know a lot of ideas will come out of that, but their perspective is what I find interesting on the challenges. Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. Cool. Well, wow, we've been on here like an hour and a half. That went by quick. As usual when I hang out with you.
As usual, yes.
But that one was particularly full. That one was particularly, and cool. And again, I talked about your daughter a few times. I talked about Zoe a couple times and told her about and showed people the picture of her dressed as Death.
Life dressed as Death.
Life dressed as Death. Yes. And and speaking about the fact of again the camp thing of doing a camp where we get young girls before they hit puberty, where they're still in their full power, they're still in connection with their full power, and then it's like if there's any chance of being an influence, for the rest of their lives, of okay, ooh, that's an amazing thing, and kind of fortifying their intrinsic power and their confidence in themselves. It's like, oh hell yes, I really, really would like to do that. That's a big interest of mine. And, so right now at this point, I kind of think I want to do that in person and do it with a small group, I would say 6 to 8 kids. But, I'm also wondering, and I would like to experiment, maybe I can experiment, and get a few of them together, because a number of these women have kids about that age, which is like, whoo, what? You have a daughter who's like 8 or 9, or you don't say. Hey, let's have a conversation. And I have this laboratory, and but this is where kind of you can really plant the seeds of the self-value at that age that can really grow roots and serve a woman her entire life.
Yes.
If you can do that. And so I am definitely interested in that. And so it would be interesting to, I'll be asking a number of women, it's like, hey, can we do an experiment thing with online? And we sort of try that first. And yep. And so I think I've found 2 partners that might be good at that. Yeah. And, but you're one of them, because I think that would be really interesting.
The thing is, you shouldn't forget the language barrier.
Oh, I'm not. These people tend to be very international. Zoe just speaks German, though. Yeah.
That's the thing. I think she's going to start not this year but next year. She's going to have English in school, but not before that. And she's interested in learning English, and maybe I get her some kind of, I don't know, learning schedule or an experiment how she might learn before that. Let's see.
How old is she again?
7.
7. I keep thinking she's like 8 or 9. 7. And because the quickest way to do that is get her in with a group of international kids.
Yes. Yes, that might work when they are physically in the same space. I don't know if it would work digitally, because then other things might be too interesting if she realizes, okay, I can't really understand what the others are doing.
Yeah. No. That's live. That one kind of has to be live.
Yeah.
It's different for kids who are gaming, because that is very mixed international. And there is a lot of English in the gaming industry. So kids who are gaming tend to pick up quicker. But other kids, it's the live thing of being in the space, because then they're kind of forced to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, they can communicate without knowing the language.
Right.
She can play. I remember when we were at Neuschwanstein and she played for 10 or 15 minutes with these French girls, which worked, which was interesting to see, without understanding each other. But it might be frustrating for a kid that which is maybe the only one who's not, or if there's a group of 6 to 8 kids and there are maybe 2 that don't understand English that good, then maybe you have like group building or something. Right.
No, it would be very small group, like 2 to 3.
Yeah.
But you don't know each other's language, and put them in that situation, and then or if you had them in a bigger group, and you could split them up in such a way where they're with each, split them up in small groups where they can't speak their own language.
Yeah.
This type of thing.
Yeah.
So there's enough to split it up, if there's enough range.
Oh,
very effective.
First part of the camp is learn a secret language, so that everybody has
create a secret language.
They invent their own language so that they can communicate under each other.
Oh, I love it.
That would be cool.
Oh, that would be super cool.
It's like spy school.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's super cool. I like that. Alrighty then. Well, we should wrap this up. And what a great. I have a lot. I was tired when we came into it. Now I'm just like I'm getting bombarded with a lot of ideas.
Yes, me too. Okie dokie.
Super. All right then. Well, thanks everybody for joining us for that. It was like a total
all over the place.
Well, actually, it was, it stayed around the Paris thing and, the tech and the thing like that. So it was actually more focused than most of our things.
Yeah, but it was like what we call
side venues, but
what we call Wundertüte in German.
Yeah, a Wundertüte, a surprise package.
Yes, it's like a surprise package. I don't know what the translation, the direct translation would be, but it's like these paper bags, the really cheap paper bags you can buy in the store, and there's like cheap candy and cheap toys in it, but it's just cool.
And it's surprise. It's a surprise package.
It's just a surprise, yeah.
Excellent.
Lucky bag.
A lucky bag, yeah. Yay. All right then. Then we'll see you next week.
Yes.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Yeah. Until then, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.